Isaac had lived a hard life, but it had been a good one. He had always believed that people could rise above the struggles of their circumstances. For him, there had never been a shortage of hope, even in the face of a crumbling colony and an uncertain future. He wasn't wealthy, and he certainly wasn't powerful, but he had something much more important: purpose. Isaac had never planned on raising a child. He was a mechanic, a man who worked with his hands, who found solace in fixing broken machines and bringing them back to life. The world he lived on was a barren place, a colony on the edge of space where the resources were scarce and the future seemed bleak. But one day, Isaac's life had changed forever. It had been a routine salvage mission, just another day of scouring the wreckage left by ships that hadn't made it to the planet's surface. But amidst the debris, Isaac had found her, a little girl, no more than 6 years old, trembling in the corner of a destroyed cargo ship. Her parents had perished in the crash, and she had been left to survive alone in the wreckage. Isaac could see the fear in her eyes, the hopelessness that came with being abandoned, and something inside him snapped. He couldn't leave her there. He had no family of his own, no wife, no children, and no real connection to anyone. But he couldn't ignore the child in front of him, crying out for help. Isaac took her in without a second thought, wrapping his coat around her small body and carrying her back to his home, such as it was. Life on the colony wasn't easy, especially for two people who had nothing but each other. But Isaac didn't mind. He had always been self-sufficient, and now he had someone to care for. Her name was Alara, and though she was scared and scarred by the trauma she had endured, Isaac was determined to help her heal. They lived in a small, makeshift home on the outskirts of the colony, a place that had once been a simple storage shed, but now served as their refuge. Isaac's work as a mechanic barely brought in enough money to feed them, but he never complained. Every day, he would teach Alara how to fix broken machines, how to pilot the old ships that dotted the scrapyards, and how to survive in a world where technology was as much a lifeline as it was a threat. Isaac had always been good with his hands, and Alara picked up the skills quickly. She wasn't like the other kids on the colony who played games or wasted their time. Alara was different. She had a hunger for knowledge, for survival. She was determined to learn, and Isaac was more than happy to teach her. As the years passed, their bond grew stronger. Isaac had become more than just a protector to her. He had become her father, the man who had given her a future when she thought she had none. Despite the hardships, they found joy in the simplest things. They would work on machines together, fixing old robots and drones that others had discarded. Isaac taught Alara how to build things from nothing, how to make something work with limited resources. They would spend hours tinkering in the workshop, their laughter echoing through the walls as they learned and grew together. For Isaac, those moments with Alara were the highlight of his life. It didn't matter that they had little to their name or that the colony was slowly dying. As long as they had each other, that was enough. But as Alara grew older, the world around her began to change. The colony's resources continued to dwindle, and the once thriving community started to fall apart. People began to leave, looking for opportunities elsewhere, seeking a better life. Isaac, though, never had that option. His loyalty to Alara and the life they had built kept him rooted in place. But as the years passed, Alara began to change as well. Isaac had watched her grow from a frightened little girl into a confident young woman, someone who could hold her own in a world full of danger. Alara's intelligence and natural talents had made her a star among the colony's mechanics, and many people sought her out for help with their machines. But Isaac had noticed something else happening too, a restlessness, a desire for more. It was as if the quiet life they had built together no longer satisfied her. She wanted to explore the world beyond the colony, to see what else the universe had to offer. One day, without warning, Alara was gone. Isaac had returned from a long day's work to find their home empty, her bed untouched, and the small note she had left behind. It was brief, just a few words, but they were enough to break Isaac's heart. "I'm leaving, Isaac. I have to go." No explanation, no goodbye, just a sudden and unexplained departure. Isaac had searched for her, asking anyone who might know where she had gone, but no one could offer him any answers. It was as if Alara had simply vanished into thin air. The years passed, and Isaac's life fell back into a familiar routine. He worked, ate, slept, and hoped that one day Alara would return, that she would come back to him and explain why she had left so suddenly. But as time went on, that hope faded. Isaac never stopped thinking about her. Every day, he would glance at the old photos they had taken together, the ones of Alara as a child, with her wide eyes and innocent smile. He would remember the days when they had laughed together, when everything had seemed possible. But those days felt so distant now, like a lifetime ago. He continued to fix machines, to repair the broken ships that came into the scrapyard, and to survive in the only way he knew how. But there was always a hole in his heart, one that had been left behind by Alara's sudden departure. He would never understand why she had left or where she had gone, but he kept the hope alive that she was out there somewhere, building a better life for herself. As Isaac grew older, the colony grew quieter. Fewer people remained, and the machines he repaired seemed to grow more outdated with each passing day. The once bustling scrapyard was now a ghost town, and Isaac's work was becoming less and less relevant. The world he had known was disappearing, and he was slowly becoming a relic of the past. But still, he held on, holding on to the memories of the little girl he had raised, the one who had filled his life with purpose and joy. Then, one day, out of nowhere, everything changed. Isaac was working on a broken drone when he heard the unmistakable sound of a ship descending from the sky. It wasn't the familiar clunk of an old colony vessel. It was a sleek, modern craft, one that he had never seen before. Isaac's heart raced. Could it be? Was it her? He dropped the tools in his hands and rushed outside, his breath catching in his throat. The ship touched down gently, and as the hatch opened, Isaac's eyes widened. There, standing in the doorway, was a woman, tall, confident, and regal. She was dressed in a sleek uniform, her dark hair flowing around her shoulders, but it was her eyes that caught Isaac's attention. Those were the eyes of Alara. He couldn't believe it. Alara had returned, but she wasn't the same girl he had raised. She had changed. She had grown into something else, someone else. And Isaac couldn't help but wonder what had happened during the years she had been gone, what kind of life she had built for herself, and why she had come back now. Isaac's heart was filled with a mix of emotions, joy, confusion, and even a hint of sadness. It had been years since he had last seen her, and in that time so much had changed. But as Alara stepped forward, her eyes filled with a deep, familiar gratitude, Isaac knew one thing for sure. No matter how much time had passed, no matter how much they had changed, they would always be father and daughter. Isaac stood still, his heart pounding in his chest. The woman standing before him looked nothing like the little girl he had once raised, and yet in her eyes he saw the same spark, the same glimmer of recognition. It had been years since Alara had left, years filled with pain and confusion, and now, here she was, returning like a stranger with a secret life Isaac couldn't even begin to understand. "Isaac," Alara said softly, her voice like a gentle breeze, carrying a sense of familiarity that made Isaac's heart ache. "It's really you." Isaac nodded, unable to speak at first. His throat was tight, his mind racing. He had imagined this moment countless times over the years, but never like this. He had imagined seeing her again, of course, but he had never imagined her looking so different. There was a certain elegance about her now, a grace he had never seen before. Her posture was straight, her demeanor calm, and there was a confidence in her movements that made Isaac realize just how much she had changed. "Where have you been, Alara?" Isaac finally managed to ask, his voice rough. "Why did you leave like that, without a word?" Alara's expression faltered for a moment, as if she were searching for the right words. She looked down at the ground, her gaze distant, as though she were reliving memories that had haunted her for years. Isaac could see the pain in her eyes, and it made his heart ache. He had always known that Alara was strong, but seeing her like this, so distant, it was hard to reconcile the young woman before him with the girl he had raised. "I'm sorry, Isaac," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I never meant to hurt you, but I had to go. I had to leave." Isaac felt a surge of emotion. It wasn't anger, he wasn't angry with her, but a deep sadness that filled his chest. He had spent years wondering why she had left without a trace, why she had abandoned him. And now, standing before him, he realized that the pain of her departure had never really left him. It had always been there, simmering beneath the surface, waiting for this moment to surface. "I don't understand," Isaac said, his voice shaking slightly. "I raised you, Alara. I gave you everything I had, and then you just left. I've spent all these years wondering where you were, why you left. Why didn't you come back?" Alara took a deep breath, as if preparing herself to reveal something she had kept hidden for too long. She looked up at Isaac, her eyes filled with a mixture of regret and determination. I had to leave Isaac, she repeated, her voice stronger now. There was something bigger than me out there, something I couldn't ignore. The world we live in, it's falling apart. I couldn't stay in that scrapyard forever. I wanted more than just survival. I wanted to make a difference. Isaac listened, but his heart was heavy. It was hard to understand, hard to grasp what Alara was saying. For years, he had done his best to provide for her, to make sure she had a future. And yet somehow, her idea of a future had been something entirely different. I thought you'd be happy, Alara continued, her voice breaking slightly. I thought you'd understand. I didn't know how to explain it, but I had to go. I joined the military. I was recruited by an interstellar empire, one that's been working to restore order to this part of the galaxy. I've been trained. I've been rising through the ranks, Isaac. I've been fighting for something bigger than what we had here. Isaac's mind was reeling. Alara, the girl he had raised, had joined the military. She had become part of an empire. It didn't make sense. This was not the life he had imagined for her. But as he looked at her, he could see the truth in her eyes. She had changed, and perhaps this was the path she had chosen for herself. But why didn't you come back? Isaac asked again, his voice more insistent now. Why didn't you tell me where you were, what you were doing? I've been living here alone all these years, and you've been out there fighting, making a name for yourself. Alara took another step forward, her expression softening. I'm sorry, Isaac, I didn't know how to face you. I thought if I came back, I would have to explain everything, and I wasn't sure how you would take it. I didn't want you to be disappointed in me. I didn't want you to think that I had forgotten you. Isaac's heart twisted at her words. He had never once thought that she had forgotten him. He had always believed that she had left for a reason, but hearing it from her now, hearing her explain her actions, made him realize just how much time had passed, how much had changed. I didn't forget you, Alara continued, her voice quiet but firm. I couldn't. You raised me. You gave me a future when no one else would. But I had to do this, Isaac. I had to make something of myself. I couldn't stay in that scrapyard forever, doing the same thing day after day. I needed to grow, to become someone who could make a difference. Isaac stared at her, feeling a mixture of emotions that he couldn't quite name. He was proud of her, of course. He had always known that Alara was capable of great things, but at the same time he felt a deep sense of loss. The girl he had raised, the one he had fought for, had become someone entirely different, and while that was a part of life, it still stung. Where did you go after you left? Isaac asked, his voice softer now, filled with a quiet curiosity. I was taken to an academy, Alara explained, her eyes brightening slightly. It was a place where they trained soldiers and officers for the Empire. I learned everything from strategy and combat to diplomacy and leadership. I rose through the ranks quickly. They saw potential in me. And then, after a while, I was assigned to different missions, helping to restore order to planets like ours. Isaac listened intently, trying to understand the woman before him. She had been gone for so long, and now, hearing her talk about the life she had built, it was hard to believe. But he could see the truth in her words, in the way she carried herself, in the confidence that seemed to radiate from her. So, you've come back, Isaac said slowly, his heart heavy with mixed emotions. Why now, after all these years? Why return to a place like this? Alara's expression softened, and she stepped closer to Isaac, her eyes filled with a sense of regret. I never wanted to leave you like that. I never wanted you to feel abandoned, but I couldn't explain it then, and I didn't know how to face you. But now I'm back, Isaac. And I want to make things right. Isaac could feel his heart breaking as he listened to her. He had spent so many years wondering why she had left, why she hadn't come back to him. And now here she was offering an explanation, but it didn't change the fact that the years had passed, and things had changed in ways he couldn't fully understand. I've been thinking a lot, Alara said, breaking the silence. I want to repay you, Isaac. I want to make up for everything. You've always taken care of me. Now I want to take care of you. Isaac shook his head, his mind reeling. I don't need anything from you, Alara. You've already given me more than I could have ever asked for. But you deserve more, Alara insisted, her voice soft but firm. You deserve a life without worry, without hardship. I've made something of myself, and I want to share it with you. You don't have to keep living like this in this rundown place. I can give you a better life. Isaac felt a lump form in his throat. He didn't know what to say. He had spent his whole life surviving, working with his hands, making do with what little he had. The idea of living a life of luxury, of wealth and power, seemed so foreign to him. But then again, maybe it was time to let go of the past. Maybe it was time to accept that Alara had moved on, and so should he. "I don't know what to say," Isaac murmured, looking down at the ground. "I'm proud of you, Alara. I always will be. But I've lived my life a certain way, and I don't know if I can change now." Alara placed a hand on his shoulder, her touch gentle and reassuring. "You don't have to change, Isaac, but I can help you. Let me help you. Let me make things right." Isaac looked up at her, his heart torn. It was hard to believe that the little girl he had raised had become this powerful, this capable. But as he stood there looking at her, he realized something important. She was still his daughter. And no matter how much time had passed, no matter how different things were, that bond would always remain. And maybe, just maybe, it was time to let her help him. Isaac stood at the edge of the small workshop, watching as Alara moved around with ease. She had offered to help him with some repairs on the old drone he had been working on for days. He wasn't sure why, but the idea of letting her help, letting her take control of something that had always been his responsibility, felt strangely uncomfortable. But then again, it was hard to deny how skilled she had become. The sounds of tools clinking and the hum of machines filled the space, and Isaac couldn't help but observe how different everything felt. The same place where he had spent countless hours fixing broken equipment and tinkering with old ships now felt out of place. Alara, standing tall and focused, moved like a professional, no longer the scared child he had raised, but a confident, capable woman. It was difficult for Isaac to wrap his mind around the fact that the little girl he had spent so many sleepless nights worrying over had grown into someone with a purpose and a future beyond anything he could have imagined for her. Yet as Alara continued to work, Isaac found himself feeling more and more conflicted. She had returned, yes, but she wasn't the same person. She had moved on, lived a life that Isaac could never have imagined for her, and now she was offering him everything she had achieved. It was hard to accept. He had always prided himself on his independence, his ability to survive with little. He had never needed anyone, never expected anyone to take care of him. But now, standing here in the quiet workshop, he realized that maybe, just maybe, he had been wrong all these years. "You're quiet," Alara remarked without turning to face him. She continued to work on the drone, her hands moving with precision as she worked. Isaac cleared his throat and stepped closer. "I'm just thinking," he said, his voice low. "You've changed, Alara. I mean, I knew you would, but this is a lot to take in." Alara looked up, her eyes softening as she met his gaze. "I know it's hard to understand. But I'm not asking you to change, Isaac. I just want to help. I want to make sure you're not alone anymore." Isaac shifted uncomfortably, running a hand through his hair. "I'm not used to this, Alara. I've spent my whole life working alone. I never asked for more than what I had. And I never expected you to come back." Alara set the drone down on the workbench and walked over to him. "I know, but you deserve more. You've spent your whole life taking care of me, making sure I had a future. Now it's my turn to take care of you." Isaac's heart twisted. He could see the sincerity in her eyes, but a part of him, an old, stubborn part of him, was resisting. He didn't know how to accept her offer. He didn't know how to accept the life she was offering him, a life that was so different from everything he had ever known. It was tempting, yes. Who wouldn't want a life free from the struggles he had faced? But there was a part of him that felt like he was losing something by accepting it, something important. "I never wanted anything more, Alara," Isaac said, his voice thick with emotion. "All I ever wanted was you to be safe, to be happy. I never thought about about a life like what you have now." Alara stepped closer, her presence filling the space between them. "I know you didn't, Isaac, and I'm grateful for everything you've done for me. But I've seen the way things are here. I've seen the struggle you've lived with. I don't want that for you anymore. I want you to have a better life." Isaac couldn't argue with her. He knew what she was saying was true. The colony was dying. The world they lived on had no future. And Isaac, he was stuck in the past, clinging to a way of life that no longer existed. Perhaps it was time for him to move forward, to accept that things had changed, that his life could be different. "I've been living in the past, haven't I?" Isaac said softly, more to himself than to Alara. "I've been holding on to things that don't matter anymore." Alara nodded, her gaze never leaving his. "It's hard to let go, but sometimes letting go is the only way to move forward." Isaac closed his eyes for a moment, letting the weight of her words settle in. He had spent so many years holding on to the past, holding on to the way things used to be. But the truth was, he didn't want to be alone anymore. He didn't want to live a life of isolation. He had raised Alara, given her everything he had, but he had never truly allowed himself to have a life of his own. It was time to change that. He opened his eyes and looked at Alara, seeing her not as the little girl he had raised, but as the woman she had become. And for the first time in years, Isaac felt a sense of peace. Maybe it wasn't about what he had lost, but about what he could gain now. Maybe it wasn't about his independence anymore, but about the family he still had, in whatever form it took. "You're right," Isaac said, his voice steady now. "I've spent so much time thinking about what I've lost that I've forgotten what I still have." Alara smiled, a soft, genuine smile that made Isaac's heart swell. "And you still have me. I'm not going anywhere this time." Isaac nodded, a weight lifting from his shoulders. He didn't have all the answers, and he didn't know what the future held. But for the first time in a long time, he felt a glimmer of hope. Alara had come back into his life, not just as the daughter he had raised, but as an equal. She had her own life now, her own experiences, and it was time for him to embrace that. Over the next few days, Alara stayed with Isaac, helping him with the repairs he had been struggling with. She taught him new techniques, showed him how to modify the machines they had worked on for years. It was strange at first to have someone else take the lead, but Isaac slowly began to see the benefits of working together. They were a team again, just like they had been in the past. Only now their roles were different, and the dynamic had shifted. Isaac found himself enjoying the work more than he had in years. It wasn't just about fixing machines anymore. It was about sharing the experience with Alara. It was about rebuilding the bond they had once had and creating a new kind of future together. As the days turned into weeks, Isaac's life began to change in ways he hadn't expected. He no longer woke up every morning with the same feeling of dread, the same heavy weight on his chest. He didn't feel alone anymore. Alara had brought a new energy into his life, one that made him feel hopeful, even excited. One evening, after a long day of repairs, Isaac and Alara sat together outside, watching the stars above them. The colony was quiet, the sounds of the machines and the wind the only noises that filled the air. For the first time in a long time, Isaac felt at peace. "You've done a lot for me, Alara," Isaac said quietly, his gaze on the stars. "I don't know if I can ever repay you for everything you've done." Alara smiled, her hand resting gently on his. "You already have, Isaac. You gave me a future, and that's all I ever needed." Isaac looked at her, feeling a deep sense of gratitude for everything she had brought back into his life. It wasn't just the repairs, the tools, or the machines. It was the simple act of being together, of having someone who cared. And for the first time in years, Isaac felt like he was exactly where he was supposed to be. It wasn't about wealth or power or a life of luxury. It was about family. It was about love. And in that moment, Isaac realized that everything he had ever needed had been right in front of him all along. The days that followed Isaac's realization were filled with a quiet peace he hadn't known in years. The colony, once a place of isolation and decay, now felt different. Alara's presence had breathed new life into the once-forgotten world they inhabited. Each morning, they woke up with a new sense of purpose, a new understanding of their roles in each other's lives. Isaac, though still adjusting to the changes, found comfort in the fact that they were together. It had been so long since he had shared anything with anyone, and yet now, with Alara by his side, it felt as though a chapter of his life was being rewritten. One morning, Isaac found himself standing outside their small home, watching the sunrise. The sky was painted with shades of orange and pink, and the quiet hum of the colony seemed almost peaceful. The air was crisp, a sign that the weather would soon change, but for now it was still. He felt a sense of gratitude for the life he had built, even if it was small and humble. And for the first time, he felt like he was ready to accept the help Alara had offered, not as a burden but as something that could enrich both of their lives. Alara joined him outside, her footsteps soft against the dirt as she walked up to stand beside him. She too looked out at the horizon, her eyes focused on the distant sky. "You've been quiet lately," she said after a while, breaking the silence. "Is everything all right?" Isaac turned to her, offering a smile. "I've just been thinking about everything that's changed. It's hard to put into words, but it's like I've finally accepted that I don't have to do everything on my own." Alara nodded, understanding more than he realized. "I know it's not easy. You've spent your whole life being independent, but it's okay to let people in, Isaac. It's okay to lean on someone when you need it." Isaac glanced at her, his gaze filled with gratitude. I know, I guess I've just never been good at asking for help. You don't have to ask, Alara said, her voice gentle but firm. I'm not here to fix things for you, Isaac. I'm here to share this life with you. We're a team, remember? Isaac chuckled softly. A team, he repeated, the word feeling foreign on his tongue, but in that moment it felt right. A team, a family. He had spent so much time working alone, but now, with Alara, the idea of sharing his life with someone didn't feel so difficult. As the days turned into weeks, the colony continued its slow decline, but Isaac and Alara found ways to make the most of it. They worked side by side, fixing drones and machines, salvaging what they could from the scraps of old ships and broken equipment. Isaac had always been good at repairing things, but now, with Alara's expertise, they were able to build new things, repurposing old technology and turning it into something useful. The bond between them grew stronger with each passing day. They spent more time together talking about the past, their shared memories, and the future. Isaac had always believed that he was meant to live a simple life, but now he wasn't so sure. Alara had shown him that there was more to life than just surviving. It was about living, about having a purpose and a connection with others. One evening, as they worked late into the night, Isaac took a break and sat down on the old chair by the workbench. Alara followed suit, sitting beside him, wiping the sweat from her brow. They were both exhausted, but there was a sense of fulfillment that came with the work they had done. "Do you ever think about what comes next?" Isaac asked, his voice thoughtful. Alara tilted her head, considering the question. "What do you mean?" "I mean, we've fixed all these machines, we've built things, but what happens when this place eventually falls apart?" "What happens when there's nothing left to fix?" Isaac asked, his words carrying the weight of the uncertainty he felt. Alara leaned back in her chair, her gaze focused on the distant horizon. "We make the most of what we have. We live in the present, Isaac. There's no point in worrying about what comes next. What matters is that we're here now and we're doing something meaningful together." Isaac smiled, feeling a sense of comfort in her words. It wasn't the answer he had expected, but it was the answer he needed. He had spent so much time focusing on the future, on what was going to happen next, that he had forgotten to live in the present. He had forgotten to enjoy the simple moments, like sitting together with Alara, working side by side, and watching the stars at night. "You're right," Isaac said, his voice soft. "I've spent too much time looking ahead. I should focus more on what's right in front of me." Alara smiled, reaching over and placing her hand on his. "And what's right in front of you is me. I'm not going anywhere, Isaac. I'm here to stay." Isaac felt a warmth spread through his chest at her words. He had never imagined this moment, never imagined that he would find himself here with Alara by his side, sharing this small, quiet life. It wasn't the life he had planned for, but it was the life he had now, and in that moment he realized it was enough. As the days turned into months, Isaac's life began to change in subtle ways. The work they did together became a source of pride, not just because of the machines they fixed or the things they built, but because of the connection they had. It was no longer just about survival. It was about creating something meaningful, something that would last. One day, a ship arrived at the colony, its sleek exterior gleaming in the sunlight. It wasn't a ship from the empire Alara had worked for, but it was a sign that there were still people out there, people who hadn't abandoned the galaxy to decay. Isaac and Alara watched from the small balcony of their home as the ship touched down. As the ramp lowered, a man in a dark uniform stepped out. He looked official, his posture straight and rigid as he surveyed the area. Isaac and Alara exchanged a glance, both of them wondering what this visitor could want. The man approached them, his eyes scanning the small colony. "I'm looking for someone," he said, his voice calm but serious. Alara Starling." Alara stepped forward, a slight frown on her face. "That's me," she said. "What do you need?" The man looked at her with a mixture of respect and curiosity. "We've been tracking your progress, Alara. Your work has caught the attention of the higher-ups. They want you to come back. There's a position open in the Empire, and we think you're the perfect fit." Isaac felt a pang of unease at the mention of the Empire, but Alara remained calm. She glanced at Isaac before looking back at the man. "I've moved on from that," Alara said, her voice steady. "I've found something else, something more meaningful. I'm not going back." The man didn't seem surprised, but his expression shifted slightly as though he had expected this answer. "I see. Well, if you change your mind, the offer still stands." As the man turned to leave, Isaac watched Alara, her gaze distant as she thought about the offer. He could see the conflict in her eyes, the pull of something greater, something outside their small world. But Isaac knew deep down that this was her choice. She had chosen to stay to build a life with him, and that was all that mattered. "Are you sure about this?" Isaac asked, his voice quiet as the man's ship lifted into the sky. Alara turned to him, a soft smile on her face. "I'm sure, Isaac, this is where I belong now, with you, this life we've built together." Isaac nodded, feeling a sense of peace settle in his chest. They didn't need the Empire or any outside forces. What they had right here was enough. And as he watched the ship disappear into the sky, Isaac realized that he had everything he needed, right where he was.